Welcome to the session on building your own ChatGPT in Microsoft Azure. Thanks, by the way, to the sponsors. Make sure you visit them. They're the ones that make these type of events possible. So always great to see a lot of sponsors, especially at a big event like this one. So a little bit of intro to who I am. I have been doing public speaking for about the past 2 decades in the Microsoft space. I've been fortunate enough to be able to have traveled all over the world, 83 different countries, 300 different events. This is actually my first time, though, presenting in Italy, so this will be my 84th country, so that's kind of exciting. But happy to be here. That's a little Azure map of some of the places I've spoken at over the years. We even did an event in Antarctica one year. That was a SharePoint event. You can find the videos online if you really, if you look for SharePoint and penguins, you usually will find some of those videos. So let's jump into this. By the way, my day job is working as a consultant at a Microsoft partner. So we do a lot of work setting our customers up with cybersecurity and recently with Azure AI Search. And that's really functionally what this session is about. So if the translations are wrong here, you can blame ChatGPT because I ran this through ChatGPT. But I'm going to have maybe 3 slides, and then I'm going to jump right into a demo because we have we have about 40 minutes to build a Azure AI search environment from scratch, and I'm going to attempt to do that. So really the idea around this is that we have a lot of clients that came to us that says that they want to take advantage of large language models like ChatGPT, but they're uncomfortable putting their data out in the public versions of these tools. So they wanted to create their own accessible layer for this. And Microsoft, of course, you're probably familiar with the engine of Copilot, the fact that it's running on OpenAI. And as well as licensing Copilot from OpenAI, Microsoft licensed their engine for use in Azure as well too. And that's ultimately came up with the ability to spin up your own ChatGPT instance in Azure itself. This allows you as well to kind of create these individual chat engines for specific scenarios. Like you can have one to talk about company benefits, human resources. You can have one that's specific to finance. You can have one specific to other parts of the organization, and it's also a method of controlling cost. For most of our clients, it's roughly $1,500 in a month that they're spending on this, as opposed to what they would be spending on licenses for Copilot. So there's some differences, some major differences in costs there. And with some of the capabilities of cognitive search, it's the ability to be able to basically look at your data using those LLMs, ask questions about the data. It used to be, I talked about the benefits scenario. It's one of the most common scenarios we see because we have these clients where people are asking, what kind of benefits do I have? How do I take advantage of my benefits? And in the past, they would be asking someone at Human Resources directly, or they would be going through these lists of documentation stored on the company intranet. But now you can actually use these LLM models to do cognitive searches against that, to be able to get better results against that. And really, the model of this is to be able to kind of use those machine learning technologies to be able to take advantage of those types of technologies themselves. So if you want to as well, you can connect to different data sources. So we're going to be connecting to Azure Blob Storage, but you can also connect to Azure SQL Database, and you can connect to other different services that are out there as well too. So a lot of capabilities that are included. But like I said, I just want to give you kind of a brief kind of structural guidelines about what it is that we're going to be creating. And again, in about the 33 minutes that we have here, hopefully we'll be able to create a new one from scratch. Now, just like in the food shows, I already have one prepared. So we'll take a look at that first, just in case we don't get done with it, because I don't always control everything that's going on in Microsoft in terms of how quickly things get provisioned at Azure, but we will do our best. But from a functional Azure design perspective, everything, it's kind of hard to tell, but this is all sitting within one resource group. So we've got a resource group here, and I always recommend that this all goes into one resource group so that when you're done with the pilot or POC, you can just retire that. You can remove all the resources at once, but you can also control the security to everything within that. And then within that resource group, we've got an Azure OpenAI instance, which is kind of the engine that's running this. So these are the LLM engines. So we've got, right now, we've got offered for GPT-4 or GPT-4 32K engine, as well as an ADA text model that's underneath that. And then the Azure AI search engine itself, too, which leverages Azure OpenAI. Within this, we have the indexes, we have the indexing components. This goes and reaches into the data sources to do things like create the indexes. In this case, we're creating a storage account with our data. So we're going to upload some data into that. And then the app service itself is what presents this to the end users. Now, you can create this as a web app service, or basically a web page, or you can also do it as a chatbot. So you can do that as a chatbot that's accessible via Teams. So you could pull up a Teams chatbot and say, human resources chatbot, tell me about my benefits, for example. But what we're going to be creating is an app service that includes an app service registration, which controls, basically says that only users within your organization can access this, as well as you can create an optional enterprise app to actually have it show up as a tile within the My Application space. In the demo, I'm also going to create a separate storage account just for anonymous access into a logo file. That can be actually, you can place this anywhere that you have your logo file, so if you already have it somewhere else, that's why I put that as optional. And there's also Cosmos DB, which is used for chat history, which is an optional component as well, too. So, one thing, by the way, whenever recently, I've been leveraging AI to create a demo slide, and normally I do a different presentation on this that's more related to AI, but I thought I'd put this in there as well, too. So I asked ChatGPT to create a demo slide for me about to do a demo to an audience in Milan. And this is what it came up with, by the way. If you notice, everybody's very fashionable, including the presenter, who, if you look very closely, is wearing high heels. Now, I'm not wearing high heels today because I'm just not fashionable enough, but this is what it came up with. I think that's risotto. I'm not entirely sure. Maybe not Milanese. But in any case, it could be worse. This is what it came up with for Slovenia. This is what it came up with when I did this presentation in VSpot a couple weeks ago. I think this guy has a drinking problem, or, well, he's got a lot of, apparently beer, but it's in some kind of jars in front of him. This is Bosnia. There's a lot of meat involved. If you've ever been to Bosnia, that actually rings pretty true. And this is Dallas, Texas. So this was 2 months ago when I did this in Dallas. And that's pretty typical for Dallas if you've ever met Eric Sheps. And this was my favorite. This was in New Zealand a couple months ago. That's literally a kiwi bird. If you look closely, he's wearing a headset, and he's got a laser pointer coming off of his beak. So this is what AI thinks of us. Just keep that in mind. All right, so enough on that. Let's try to get this built here. Again, briefly, I'm going to show you the existing built environment here, because we may not have enough time to get completely to the point where we've built this. But this is the default front end. Incidentally, you can fork Microsoft's project, and you can create your own front end. We have developers where we've done that. We have our own custom front end that we'll actually put in place in some cases. But in this case, I have my benefits. I have a bunch of human resources data that's Microsoft kind of has a sample Northwind data that they put in there that's on the back end here. I created, I threw in this fictional company ABC logo up here, and I basically have it all fronted on the back end of the different resources. And right now you can see it's just like ChatGPT, it's starting to tell you about them, what kind of benefit plans you have, what you can do with it. It'll give you some lists of references and that type of thing. Again, this is all just these components. I'll quickly switch over. Actually, where is it? These are all within this. Let me zoom in here a bit so you can see better there. This is all within a resource group that I created just for that. So if you notice, I've got all those components that were in that slide previously. I've got Azure OpenAI. I've got the data storage account where my human resources data is, and then I've got a storage account for the logo, as well as the search service, the Cosmos DB for the chat history, and then the app service and the app service plan. So if you see, my engine has told me, it's gone into the data and it's pulled out useful information. Okay, so let's try to create another one of these from scratch. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a resource group to hold all this new stuff in. Let's go in and create one. Oops, great. Let's call it, let's start with RD. Now, this is kind of the tricky part about Azure AI Search. It's not available in every region. And by the way, I glossed over this a little bit here. Let me go back to this important slide. I'll keep coming back to this here. First off, you actually have to ask Microsoft to be part of this because this is still in preview. So that's what this link was for here. But also, this part here, choose your region, this is really important. Why? Because Microsoft doesn't have this operating in every region. And you'll find the first couple times you're setting this up, you actually are going to be deploying it in regions where it doesn't have availability. This was particularly the case early on in the project where we were deploying these for our customers, and it wasn't available necessarily within the proper geography. That can create issues, especially for data where you want your data to reside in. But right now, as of yesterday, when I set up this last one here, there was availability in Switzerland North. So let's go through and just create this resource group that we're going to throw everything into. All right, so we've got our resource group now, and let's create a new resource here. And we're going to create Azure OpenAI. Okay, this is again that LLM engine that we're going to be using. Throw it into our resource group. This is the old resource group, the old one. And keep everything within the same region. So we're going to keep this in Switzerland North. Give it identifiable names. And right now I only have access to one of the pricing tiers. Now, by default, Microsoft does have a content review policy in place. The idea with this is they're trying to make sure that their customers are not trying to take over the world or something like that. So you have to actually request that Microsoft takes you out of this if you want to remove that. We do have a few clients that have done that, but otherwise keep in mind that Microsoft, go through their plan here. They're reviewing the content that you're putting in there to make sure that it's not nefarious or that it's not somehow something bad. So let's just finish this one up. Create this. I'm really going to watch my Azure credits spin down with this one because now I'm going to have two of these running at the same time. And if I don't touch this at all and I don't even use this, I'm consuming around $300 a month per instance of this that I spin up. Or technically, most of the cost goes into the Azure AI Search, which we'll see here in a second here. So, all right. So it's creating the deployment. In the meantime, while that's running, let's actually create a couple more resources here. Because I'm making this hard on myself. I don't have anything pre-created in this new one, just so we can see how quickly we can do this. Going to make a couple storage accounts. Now this has to be globally unique, so we're going to put something in it like UBC chat demo to data. It'll check to make sure nobody else owns that out there, make sure I'm putting it in the right resource group. We definitely don't need anything like, don't want to spend any extra money on premium disk or anything like that for just the data that we have in here. I don't think we need to do anything here. I do generally put it into the cool access tier. Again, that's just saving money. So this is my data. This is where my HR data is going to be. I'm going to create a container within this one. Create. While that one's creating, you can see Azure AI has now been created. And I can actually go in and start to create the LLM models. So that's where you click on this Manage Deployment, and it pops us out of the standard Azure portal and instead takes us over to what they call Azure OpenAI Studio. While that's loading, let's pop back over into this. We'll see the deployment still in process for the storage account. We'll wait for one of these to finish here. This is the logo one that I created previously, so let's close that one down just not to confuse things. Okay, Azure OpenAI Studio. This one is done. We now have the data account. So let's go in and create a container for our data. Doesn't matter what we call it. In our data container, we're going to upload some content. Now, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to upload a bunch of content from a customer site or anything like this. So I pondered over what kind of content to deploy or to upload here, and I realized one of the best things is probably just the entire written text of Lord of the Rings. Why not? Because if we're going to violate some kind of copyright protections, we might as well do it in front of a live audience. So, Lord of the Rings is going in there. This is everything. So that's going to be what we start with. Now, one thing to note: don't put all your data in here. Like if you have 3,000 files, don't start with 3,000 files. Start with 2 or 3 files. There's a reason for this, but the long and short of it is that it'll take forever to run through the chat playground and to do the initial indexing, whereas if you add it later, it'll take much less time. But we do need something. It needs at least one file to be able to create that initial index. So we've just thrown that one in here. So let's create one more resource here. Let's create a storage account. Another one. This is again for the logo. Now, this is it's almost kind of silly when you think about it, but we literally just need a web page that we can reference that's anonymous access for the logo to show up. So we are going to put it in the same storage account name, ABC Chat Demo 2, but let's call this one logo. And again, it's for security reasons that we keep it separate, because this is anonymous access that we're going to set this one up as. And again, let's do this cool access tier. Review and create. We'll let it go through and do that. Great. All right. While that one's baking in the background, let's actually zoom in here so you can actually read this. And let's create a new deployment. And this is where you will oftentimes get stuck because there won't be availability. You'll click on availability and it'll say, oh, there's no availability that's out there. But hopefully we have the availability. It looks like we do. Usually we don't make it past this point. So Switzerland North right now has availability. If you don't have availability, you need to redeploy in a different zone. So there's some games that you can play to try to determine, it's actually within here under quotas, where there's availability. But in this case, since we have this, let's just call this GPT-4. Here's our content filter. If we created a custom content filter, we can do that. We can change our rates, how many requests per minute. You generally want to go higher on this one. We can talk more in detail about why you would want to do that, but let's actually just get this deployed. That actually deploys very quickly. I'm going to create one more deployment for our text embedding models. Oh, and that's funny. It's not now. Yesterday it was available, and today it's not. Okay, we're going to do this without the text. We don't necessarily need that. So let's do it with just the deployment model that we have. This one has it with the text embedding, but Microsoft decided to not have that availability. Again, normally I would restart, look at a different zone that I can deploy my data into and start over from there. But we'll just deploy it without the ADA text model that's part of this. Okay, so that's been created. Now let's go back into the logo resource and let's change the security on this. So We want to be able to change this to allow anonymous access. Save. Remember, again, this is the logo. Make sure we're in the logo and we're not allowing anonymous access to our data. All right, let's go and create a container. Call this one logo. And give it a second. It's got to refresh the fact that, that the anonymous access is available here. Actually, that can take a few minutes, so I might actually flip over into creating the Azure AI search while we give it a second to catch up to the fact that it's anonymous access. I notice that can take anywhere up to a minute. So let's swap over and say Azure AI search. Look at that. You can see my credits spinning down while this is going, literally. I started with 150 yesterday. Okay. Azure AI search. That's that other component we need. We're going to create it in that chat demo 2. We're going to call it ABC chat demo 2. Oh yeah, lowercase, never mind. ABC chat demo 2. AI search. That works. And we're going to put it in Switzerland North. Okay, and this is where if you need to have more indexes, you can have up to 50 or 12 indexes in the standard pricing tier. This is the one that's around $250 a month or so. The next level up is around 1,000 a month, so you really have to want that. But let's deploy this with the 250. Okay, so that one's going to deploy. I'm going to go back into our logo. Let's see if we can create an anonymous access container yet. If it's updated, it's anonymous access. No, it hasn't. We know that it's there. I switched that to enabled, right? Maybe I didn't save it. Oh, it's possible it just didn't finish updating it. Okay. And you notice how I'm just impatient. It says it may take up to 30 seconds, but that was more than 30 seconds. Okay, now let's go into Azure AI Search. We don't need the logo yet, so I'm going to leave that in the background. We'll get the logo later. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into the chat playground, what they call in the chat playground. Okay. Now that I have my data, my Lord of the Rings volume that's uploaded into my storage account, I'm going to use the chat playground to play with my data. And I can go in and add Azure Blob Storage. So we're going to select the resource for that. So let's see, what did I call it? ABC Chat Demo Data 2. Let's select the container for that. And we'll select the new one that I just created, Chat Demo 2. Select how often we want to index this. Hourly makes sense in most cases. I don't have vector search to this because I didn't create the AI engine. Okay, let's see. ABC. Okay. Next. I'm going to do keyword search. I select you do a large chunking size. It gives better results. That's a new thing that they added. And let's save this one. So now this will actually run through and start to create an index. So it'll actually reach into that storage account, find that Lord of the Rings thing, and start to break it up. In fact, we can actually watch it. If we take a look at search management here, we take a look at indexers, we'll start to see it create the new index. So see how it says no history? It's just starting to play with this one. It will actually go through and create those indexes, and then we can search against the data that's within those. We still haven't deployed the web app yet, by the way. Notice how, okay, now it's in progress. It's starting to do there's the regular indexer, which pulls the document in, and then there's the chunker. And the chunker is going to break up that entire volume into 1,536 kilobyte chunks. So now it's running through the chunker. You should start to see the document levels go up on this one. And of course, in IT, we're impatient, so we just keep hitting refresh. But it will go. I suppose we can take that opportunity to see if we can create a container now in the logo. Look at that. Anonymous access. Great. Let's throw that logo in there. The logo was fun. This morning I asked myself a question. I said, hey, ChatGPT, can you create a logo that kind of looks like Lord of the Rings? And it goes, well, I can't create something that looks like Lord of the Rings, but I can create something that looks kind of like Lord of the Rings. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So then it created this. Obviously not violating any copyright on that, but that's our logo that we're going to throw in there. So let's upload. Oops, that's one level up. There it is. Upload our logo. All right. So we got a logo in there now. So now we're going to need a couple of pieces of information later on when we customize it. I grabbed the URL for this, okay? And this URL is going to replace the current URL that I have here. So this is the location. I just basically use this. This is almost like a cheat sheet, right? Where I basically says, okay, I need to customize that page, and I need to put specific information. So like the title at the top, we can call it kind of. Start chatting with let's go crazy here. All right, let's see this. Chatbot, okay. Anyway, you get the idea. Basically, we're going to later on throw this in here just to customize the page, because otherwise you're going to see Contoso, and nobody wants to see Contoso. All right, so back in. Let's take a look at this, refresh the page here. All right, it chunked up Lord of the Ring into 640 different chunks. Great. That should be there in the chat playground now. So now you'll see it's here. I've got my data. Ooh, it's all on. This is just the playground, but it still should be able to pull out of the index itself as well too. So once it wakes up and decides it actually can. There we go. So he's a central character. He forged the one ring. Blah 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 blah. Everybody knows this. Most people do. Anyone that works in IT. All right. So now it may sound counterintuitive, but you actually want to remove the data source, because we're going to remove the Azure Blob Storage and instead reference the Azure AI search. So let's remove the data source, remove the grounding data. Now we're going to add new grounding data. In this case, now we're going to go and add the Azure AI search index that we just created. So now I have to select this new service that I created, and I have to select the index. Don't select the index, that's the chunking one. This is confusing, I know, but select the one that we created. Now if I had the ADA, I could add the vector search, but we don't really need it right now, so let's just ignore that. And let's do keyword search. Save and close. Now I'm referencing this, so I can say, who is, let's go with wait, what is the one ring? Okay. I mean, we should basically be with the same set of data, except instead of referencing it directly, now I'm referencing the Azure AI search. So I just run a quick query just to make sure that we're still dealing with the same data set here. Give it a second to respond as it goes up to Switzerland, over the Alps, through a bunch of, okay, there we go. Powerful artifact, etc. All right, let's clear the chat. Let's now deploy this. This is the part that takes about 5 minutes, so I'm going to get this cooking here. So I'm going to now deploy this out to a new web app. We're going to give it a globally unique name here. So Company ABC, Lord of the Rings. Okay. That's probably unique because nobody wants to get sued. And let's select our chat demo 2, Switzerland North. That's Basel or something? I don't know, somewhere up there. select our pricing plan. This is a cheap, basic B1's like $10 a month, so it's really not that big of a deal. This is the Cosmos DB. I'm actually going to uncheck this mainly because it takes much longer to do that. But if you want to have chat history in the app and you want to have the Cosmos DB database part of that, you select that. So let's hit deploy on this just to start that cooking. And it's going to start deploy that web app. So it's 5:46. We'll come back to that in a bit here. All right, so now I've got my resources created here. Let's refresh the page. I will point out a couple things about this before we actually get into the data itself. One is if you noticed, I set it up to hourly index, which means when I go back into my resource, let's say I want to upload some other data into it. So let's go upload some more sets of data. I mentioned in the beginning that it's a good idea to do that. Once I do this, within an hour, the next time it runs, it's going to index the new content. So let's upload some new data into this. And in this case, the last time I did this presentation, somebody actually gave me The Hobbit, found it online. So let's throw that one in there too. So now we can ask questions from The Hobbit too. Now I'll show you how to manually then index that so we don't have to wait the hour. But first, let's let this upload the file that's up there. And this is going to be running for a while. We'll leave that there. Okay, the Hobbit is now there. Let's go back into my index. So I can now pull that file into the indexer manually just by running the, oops, that's the wrong page. Indexers. Indexes and indexers, two separate things. So let's run this one. Last time I ran was 7 minutes ago. Let's manually run this. So if you have it set to not manually run once an hour, or you just need to kick it off immediately, you run this one first, and then you run the chunker. So they've got to be run together. But first let this one finish. 5 seconds ago, that one's done. Now we run the chunker. So it'll chunk up the Hobbit. All right. Okay, Hobbit's significantly smaller, and yet they still made 3 movies out of it. Go figure. Good on them making money out of that franchise. But in any case, so now that's running, and let's go check to see if our web app has finished deploying. It hasn't finished deploying yet, but since I will, while that's running, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the existing one that I have, and I'm going to show you where you would modify those settings to add in these custom settings that were here, because we have a very short window of time to do this in. So let's go into my app service for the original one that I created. Go under settings, go under environment variables. All right. So environment variables are where we basically add these into it. There are some that are there by default. You can take a look at this. These are mostly created with that in place, but if you notice now I have like my logo. My logo's pointing to this other location. Let's let's do this now, just in case that doesn't finish, because then you can see this super cool Lord of the Ring logo before I delete this to make sure that I don't use up all my credits. All right. By the way, anytime you make any change to these environment variables, it also takes at least 2-3 minutes. And I'm getting the 10-minute sign, so lots of pressure here. We can at least get the Lord of the Ring logo up there. So yeah, you'll be sitting here furiously refreshing this or restarting the web page. Don't bother. It takes at least 2-3 minutes for that to update itself. So let's check to see if this is finished. Of course it hasn't finished. It's still taking, like I said, it takes at least 5 minutes. We're at 4 minutes. All right. And the web page is actually taking a little bit longer, which means that it might actually have picked up that environment variable change. But like I said, these are all, these are where you're making those changes. Oh, the other thing I forgot to mention, if you want it to stay within your set of data, which a lot of organizations do. In other words, results only come from the data that you've uploaded. That's by default. But if you want to be able to go beyond that and get search results from outside of that, like compare my data with, Wikipedia or something like that, you set these two variables here to false. Azure Search Enable in Domain, Azure Elasticsearch Enable in Domain to false. So I don't have these currently in there, but those are important ones to note. And if you want to enable feedback in the Cosmos DB so that it stores up or down, it'll give you the up or down thumb with the results. And if you want to be able to check from your users, like, do they like the results they're getting? That's what this particular environmental variable is. And the rest of them are pretty pretty descriptive here. So, all right, let's check. Yeah, of course it's still deploying. You can't rush Microsoft, not in the middle of a demo where you have 8 minutes left. But let's see if this guy got the new logo. Wait, 2 to 3 minutes on that one. If this doesn't, I'm going to launch into questions if it hasn't updated it yet. Does anyone have the Jeopardy song on their phone? That's what my daughter does to me when she's waiting around for something. Apparently that's a Gen Z thing. I didn't know that. Okay. Just because I don't like dead air and I don't have any more AI images to show you, is that the proper translation? I translated that one too, or ChatGPT did. Please fill out the survey form. It's in your run-out events. If you signed up for this, you'll see that. But I also want to put this here because this is my contact information, connect on LinkedIn, all that good stuff. And if you're interested in travel, by the way, I'm one of only 400 people that have visited every country in the world. It's kind of a side passion of mine as well, too. Just finished the last country, Libya, earlier this year. And being that also Libya was, for a time, well, let's just say, associated with Italy, they have very good espresso. That's one thing I found out. They unlike you go to Morocco, it's all tea. No, you go to Libya, it's all espresso. Are there questions while Microsoft's churning in the background that I can answer? Gentlemen. Go ahead. We've got a mic. A mic. Go ahead. Oh, look, Lord of the Rings logo came up. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
If you right now ask your chatbot something that is not in the book, for example, who is Lord Voldemort?
Yeah.
What's going to answer?
So it won't. It'll just say, it's actually kind of annoying. It'll say, I don't have that access in my data, right? It'll just say, oh, it's not in my data. Now, if I had changed those two environmental variables to be able to search outside as well as inside, it would go, oh, he's from Harry Potter or whatever. But yeah, that's natively by default it says this is what you get. The requested information not found in the retrieved data. But if you write in what is north wind, that's in the data and it'll come back with the results.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for at least the question. Helps to kill the dead space here. We did get the logo. Not this one, because that's in a different location, but we did get the other logo, if you noticed that. Okay, well, it's generating stuff. It's still deploying the web app. I have no control over that. Sometimes it takes longer than 5 minutes, obviously, especially when you're on stage and you're only given 40 minutes to do this. Other questions that I can answer while that's churning away? Yes, right there, gentlemen. We're gonna bring the mic all the way out to you. I know this is going to finish right when it's time to go anyway, but I'm not going to go late because I never do. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it always works like that. My question, it might be pretty simple because I'm really interested in what happened here. I mean, let's say that I have a support system, okay, where the people ask questions about some specific data, okay? So can I trigger an action when the ChatGPT doesn't have the answer? Can I integrate that with something else?
So there are limitations with what you can do. The chat, the session is stateless. So the only thing that gets stored is the queries, and only if you have the Cosmos DB set up to log those queries. So you can store that, and you can store whether or not the user liked the response or not. But it's very difficult to do something beyond that. And that's by design. It's just that the LLM is kind of dictated by OpenAI in this case. They do update those on a regular basis. You'll see that, but that also then changes the nature of the results that you get. Over the 6 months or so that we've been deploying it, actually it's longer than that now that I think about it, 9 months or so, it's drastically gotten better in terms of the results that you're getting, but we have no control over that. And we've done our best. That's the one thing I didn't really talk about as well too. We've done our best to give it, like upload documents that give it guides that say, this file that you find is related to this. This file is related to this. Otherwise, it's just guessing in terms of what those files are. So a lot of it is inputting the right content. We tried inputting a whole bunch of transcripts. That was terrible because transcripts are notorious for having misspellings and it's just, ums and ahs and things. That didn't work very well. But like literature, published documents, those tend to work well. So yes, there's going to be some limitations to that, unfortunately, and that's just due to the current state of this. Oh, look at that, the web app deployed. Let's see if we can at least launch this real quick in the 3 minutes that we have. Okay, this is, you're going to need, I am GA, so I can consent. Otherwise, you have to get a GA to do this. This has to do with that, app registration that was created. But now it's going to go in, log me in, and it's going to take me into this Contoso website. And let's at least, now again, I haven't customized it, but you saw what we have to do. We have to change the environmental variables. We obviously don't have time for that, but we have time to ask it one question from the book if someone has a question they want to ask it. Anyone? Come on, someone has to. Something you always wanted to know about Lord of the Rings, but we're afraid to ask ChatGPT. Who is, you're going to have to spell that one for me, but yeah, that's a good one. Okay, who is what? T-O-M. Huh? O. D. D as in David? Okay. Dom Bombadil. Wow, that is. Did I do that right? Bomb. Okay. Well, you know what? Sometimes even when you misspell it, it'll come up with the right one. So let's see if it does. Da-dun, da-da. With the 1 minute left. Yeah. Oh, jeez. Okay. Well. It's too new, okay. Yeah, that's probably it. Yeah. I'm going to try one that I know that I at least didn't know. Go ahead, sir.
While you try again, I probably already know the answer, but I can, given what we fed to the AI, what kind of question can I pose to this? I mean, can I ask, for example, for commentaries, something like, is Tom Bombadil a character that, is needed to the story or not? Because,
Yes. Yeah. In fact, actually, I encourage you doing things like that because that's where you get the best value of it, is say things like, suppositions or things like that. Say, when did this character interact with them? Name all the times that they did that. Or when did, this, like, what could they have done differently to avoid, whatever? Or how, what are your suppositions for how Gandalf became Gandalf the White? Like, what actually happened? It can actually take you down interesting little paths like that. That's kind of meant to be the type of questions. But that's generally more for prompt engineering. And by the way, I'm going to end because they told me to end early and now I'm ending right on time. But okay. If I have additional questions, you can come up here. You'll see it did answer what the Minds of Moria are. So we actually got it kind of working just without the logo. So hopefully that's good enough. Thanks for coming. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.